Hello, it is Nancy Juetten. I am the host of the Learn More, Earn More YouTube show. I am the leader of the Raise Your Voice, Make Your Impact Facebook group, and I'm the creator of the podcast Visibility Live Lab that's starting next week. And today I have a very, very special guest I'm bringing to add value to the Learn More, Earn More conversation. And if you have been wanting to speak up on more stages and to make that happen sooner versus later, this is must-see TV. Who's my guest? It's Kimberly Crowe. Kimberly Crowe. Who is Kimberly Crowe? Oh my gosh. Kimberly Crowe is a TedX speaker, an award-winning international public speaker, a best-selling author, an audiobook producer, a six-time entrepreneur, and somebody who speaks so fast, I often wonder how much coffee she drinks. Kimberly, you have a certain philosophy about being seen. Will you please share that with us?
Absolutely. Nancy, it's such a delight to be here with you and your audience. I am delighted to be live streaming with you today. What a fun show you have. Learn more, earn more. I love that to pieces. Yes, I have a big philosophy. I believe that all of you have a message inside you, which many people have said, and I'm sure that your listeners believe. But I believe that if you are not being seen, you're being overlooked. If you're not being heard, your message isn't getting out there. And if you're not regularly getting that message out on stages, then it's not going to have the contribution you want it to have before you leave this planet.
And you have another philosophy that we talked about in a private conversation not long ago, something about if it's not fun, you're not doing it.
If it's not fun, it's not worth doing. And that is my motto, and it's words to live by.
How did you come to this particular role in your business where speaking and teaching people how to get on stages became your fun way to make a difference and make an impact?
Absolutely. Great question. So I am a six-time entrepreneur, but I haven't always been one. In fact, I did what probably many of your listeners have done. And that was I went to college and I graduated with a degree, and I went and got a good job with health insurance and everything, right? And I worked at a corporate location for 17 years. 15 of them were good. The last two, not so much. I was really good at what I did. I climbed the corporate ladder, and at the end, I had nearly $1 billion of revenue running through my organization. I was an executive director, and it was awesome. Only it wasn't. When I got to the top of the ladder, I realized it wasn't even a ladder I wanted to be on. And I was in what they call golden handcuffs because I was making a lot of money, but I was no longer doing what I loved doing. In fact, I really was pretty miserable about it. So I tried to resign. And what happens at that level often, I was very fortunate. My company really, really liked me, and they upped my salary, right? And then they gave me other opportunities, and then they gave me more territories and more opportunities. And while all that was very flattering, I was still really, really unhappy. So after about 2 years, I had found my own replacement, and we left on very good terms, and I had escaped the golden handcuffs. And that was lovely. And I went to my friends and family and I said, I've done these entrepreneurial businesses on the side. Now I'm going to be a full-time entrepreneur. What do you think I should do? Right? Like, I didn't really know where I was going to land. And they said, well, Kimberly, you were so good at what you did at corporate. Why don't you just do that? Why don't you just hang a shingle and create a business supporting the same business you already did? And I was like, that's a great idea. I am really good at that. And so I created my business, and my goal was to get to $1 million. That was like let's get to 7 figures as quickly as possible. And within 18 months, I had generated over $1 million in revenue. And I should have been celebrating, but I found I was really miserable again.
Oh no.
As a matter of fact, Brene Brown says she had a spiritual awakening / breakdown. And that is pretty much what I had at that point, because now was not just in golden handcuffs. I'd actually created a golden jail cell for myself. I had contracts, I had employees, I had responsibilities. I owned this company that I had built from nothing, and I couldn't just walk away. I couldn't just quit. Right? So I positioned it for sale, as I had with some of my other companies, but I didn't get anywhere near the offers that I was looking for. So I was in a kind of a quandary. I went to the top of the literal mountain to try to find the answer. And of course, it's not up there. And when I came back down, I met my son at the front door because I'm not just an entrepreneur, I'm also a mom. And he said, Mom, I have a problem. And I thought, great, somebody else's problem to focus on for a change. Like, wonderful. What is your problem? Because are you in mom, Nancy?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. So if we can just focus on our kids' problems, we don't have to focus on our own, right? Like, that's way better. So I was like, well, what is it, sweetheart? And he said, I am exactly the wrong age. I said, oh, how so? And he said, well, I'm 15 and a half and I'm too young to get a summer job this summer because he wasn't going to turn 16 until February. And in the US, you need to be 16 to have a summer job at a place like Baskin Robbins. And he said, I'm also too old to go back to summer camp because I'm taller than all the camp counselors now. And it's true. He was a tall little kid, not a little kid. He was a tall kid. And I was like, yep, good point. But you know what you're never too young or too old to do? And that's be an entrepreneur. So how about we create a business around the things you love doing and see if we can make some pocket money. And he, being an apple that doesn't fall far from the tree, was all over that idea. He's like, can we do that? I'm like, yep. So we put into Google, like any good parent of the 20th century would do, all of the things that he was good at. And then we put teen summer jobs, right? And up pops this idea of being an audiobook narrator. And he was like, can we do that? I'm like, I don't see why not. So we ordered a bunch of stuff on Amazon and he set it up overnight one night. The next morning, he'd already auditioned for 3 books and we were up and running. And we ended up getting so much business, we couldn't handle it all. We seriously did. There's like more need for narrators than there are narrators to narrate stories. So we ended up deciding that we would teach how to be an audiobook narrator at our local adult school. And boom, we created another business, teaching other people a skill that we had. And when we did that, it went gangbusters. We had fans lining up. We filled our classes and we booked our second and third classes before we'd even booked our first class, before we'd even finished our first class. It was amazing. And I was like, this is fun. And I decided that just because I was good at something didn't mean I was supposed to do it for the rest of my life. And I decided that I would never do another job unless it was fun.
I love
That's
that.
what happened.
And what a great example to set for your son. And just on a personal note, you say your son is tall. How tall is he?
He's 6'1".
I got you on that one. My son is 6'7.5".
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we make him big over here.
Yes. 6'7.5".
Audiobooks is all about using your voice and bringing stories to life. And now you use your voice and bring stories to life with the Speakers Playhouse and with something called Podapalooza, which we'll be talking about in a little bit.
Yes.
But what I wanted to talk about is there's, the pandemic hit in March of 2020. Those who were on live stages, it's almost like an Etch-a-Sketch came and got shaken and everybody's calendar went poof.
Great analogy.
Well, thank you. So my answer to that was podcast guesting. There's so many different ways to speak. What are they? Why, what are we overlooking? And where's our greatest opportunity? What's going on? Like, that's a whole lot going on there, but like, take a stab at that.
Great. Okay. So, of course, there's a lot of mediums to get on. There's podcasts, radio shows, TV shows, web summits, webinars, Facebook Lives, anything live streamed. This is a stage live streamed. We have LinkedIn Live is doing live now. There's Clubhouse stages. There's all kinds of stages, including in-person stages that are opening back up again. So there's a lot of different medium to get on. It depends on what floats your boat. Like if you don't like video, podcast guesting might be perfect for you, right? If you love recorded as opposed to live, you can do recorded instead of doing it live and then hoping for the best, right? I personally love live way more than recorded, but whatever floats your boat. But those are just mediums. What I want to talk about are the 4 types of stages that every speaker and entrepreneur should get on and how to maximize each one. So are you ready to get started?
Yeah, absolutely. Bring
Awesome.
it.
So stage number one is the speak to sell stage. Speak to sell is very commonly known as that person who gets up on a stage and they throw up a PowerPoint presentation, they walk you through some stuff, and then at the end, there's a bunch of PowerPoint slides about how much it's worth, and now it's really worth $1 million, and now they're going to include all these extra bonuses. Only if you buy right now, can you get it for the low price of $997, right? And that is, the speak to sell stage that a lot of people think about. And while a speak to sell stage can be that, and it can be resulting in please buy my stuff, I call it the buy my stuff stage, right? That's definitely possible. It can be a variety of other things as well, because a speak to sell stage is simply a stage that you get on to build your know, like, and trust with an audience that you're going to eventually nurture into the client journey. And at the end of that journey, ideally, they will be able to buy your stuff. But you don't have to do it from the stage directly. In fact, it takes 8 to 12 touches, they say, to be able to nurture a client into a sale. So if that's the case, getting on a stage might just be that first step of a 12-step journey, right? It might be the first step of an 8-step journey. They may want to buy your stuff right away, but they may not. So a speak to sell stage could also be go to my website or check out my free downloadable, or email me here and you can get more information. Or it could be, if you're in an in-person stage, it could be meet me in the back of the room and I'll chat with you about my programs. It could be a variety of different things. And it definitely does not have to be buy my stuff. In fact, some of the great giveaways that I love to give are quizzes, checklists, templates, meditations. There's all kinds of things that you can do that will add people to your list, and then you can nurture them down the road into a sale. So that is the speak to sell stage. Now, to maximize that one, you need to make sure that you have a proper call to action. You can't be afraid of delivering your call to action, but when you realize that it could just be, let's get on a call together and chat about whether or not my programs are right for you. It doesn't have to be a slimy sales pitch, but you do have to have a proper call to action. So know what you want before you get on the stage, know what you want your audience to do, and know what you want your audience to feel after your talk. Because when you know that, then you know what your call to action should be. So do I want them to feel frustrated and incensed? Do I want them to feel happy and energized? Do I want them to feel lack? Do I want them to feel hope? What do I want them to feel? And from that, what do I want them to take action on? What do I want them to do? So before you get on a speak to sell stage, you got to know those two things. What do I want my audience to know, to feel, and what do I want my audience to do? And then you're home free. So you can get the opportunity for them to be able to have a proper call to action and have them start in a client journey.
I love that. Speaker trainers that I've learned from have often said, we spend so much time working on the content for our presentations and the stories that we're going to tell that we forget to begin with the end in mind. And if you do not begin with the end in mind, you could get lost in your stories and lost in your structure and not leave enough time to romance the action that you want people to take. So begin with the end in mind and let people know how they should, what you want them to feel and what you want them to know and do. That's great. What is the second stage?
The second stage is this sort of brass ring of speaking that all speakers hope to get one day. And that's the paid speaking gig. That is, I just want to get on stage, share my knowledge with the world, and collect a paycheck for just speaking. And a lot of the speakers that I work with see that as like the pinnacle. I want to get paid to speak, right? Technically, I was getting paid to speak when I did audiobooks. I was getting paid to speak, right? There are a lot of different ways to get paid to speak. If you've ever been a teacher, once I was teaching my classes and I was teaching other people how to do things and sharing my knowledge and charging for that, I was a paid speaker. In fact, I was a paid speaker at age 7 because the first paid speaking gig I ever gave was with my brother and I put on a magic show for the neighborhood, and I charged everybody a dime to come. It was absolutely amazing, and that was my first paid speaking gig. So paid speaking gigs, a lot of people they want to grow up one day and be a paid speaker. And there's nothing wrong with that. But in order to maximize it, you need to be sure you're doing several things. First off, you need to follow the rules of the stage. Now, the rules of the stage may say you cannot sell anything. So the only thing that you're going to be able to collect is the check from the company or whoever is paying you to share your knowledge. Now, usually it's specific knowledge on a particular topic. One of my dear friends is an expert in the travel industry. And when COVID hit, she actually taught a class to the hospitality industry on a circuit about how to travel people safely during COVID. It was a topic that she got very familiar with very fast. And then she taught other people how to be able to have people come into their hotels or ride their buses or whatever it was safely during COVID. And it was a phenomenal opportunity for her to get many paid speaking gigs. The problem with paid, or the way to maximize a paid speaking gig is to make sure you get paid before you start speaking. Why? Because if you don't, you have just created a brand new business for yourself. It's called collections. I don't like that business. It's not my favorite business. I don't like calling people to pay me for work I've already done. So you definitely want to get paid before you speak. As long as the stage host is in integrity, hopefully they will have your check for you before the day or on the day. And if they don't, you can always take it via Zelle or Venmo. If you're in the US, you can do that, but make sure that you get paid before you speak, because once you do, you're either chasing the money later or you can't get it back. So that can be very difficult.
Okay.
You can also you usually cannot sell from the stage. You usually can't make an offer, but you can allude to your business. You can say, for example, I have this wonderful client, Nancy, and she was able to get X results in Y days by doing blah, 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 right? And when you do that, you're giving a testimonial, you're giving an example, but you're also sharing that you have a business. You're not overtly saying, buy my stuff, but you've made yourself available to the people who might want to come up to you afterwards or search you out on LinkedIn and say, hey, if you have clients that do this, tell me about your program. So that's the way to maximize that one.
Okay. Now, what is the third kind of stage?
The third kind of stage is an authority stage. Authority is designed specifically to give you authority by speaking on it, credibility by actually speaking on it. Now, the most famous one out there that lots of people know is the TED stage or TEDx stage. TEDx is a local version of TED, and it's ideas worth sharing, and they go viral if they do well. I was very fortunate to be able to be on a TEDx stage in Las Vegas, and it was picked up by TED. So now officially I am a TED speaker.
What did you talk about?
It was awesome. Actually, that brings up a really good point. You can't talk about your own business and you can't actually get paid to speak. You can't do either of the first two stages on a TED stage. So my talk was on confirmation bias, which basically means the more you believe something, the more evidence you're going to find to believe the same thing. And it shuts down the beginner mind. You stop learning as soon as you're sure you're right. So confirmation bias is I'm only going to let in the things that agree with what I already believe, and I'm just going to ignore and throw out the things that don't agree with that. And that can lead to a lot of problems. And I couldn't say this on the TEDx stage because you can't talk about anything political, but it is a large problem in politics today, because once a person has made a commitment as a politician in one particular area, they're not permitted to change their mind or they're berated significantly, right? So changing your mind, adding in new information, gathering new stuff from a beginner's mind, it is really a powerful way to grow as a human race. And we've got to be careful about that confirmation bias.
So, well, that's what an honor to be on the TED stage and to have, friends of mine have been on the TEDx stage, and there's a whole process of how to apply for it, et cetera, et cetera. But this is all about maximizing it. So when you are fortunate to earn the right to share your message from a TED or TEDx stage, how do you maximize that?
Well, you hit the nail on the head, because the way you get on an authority stage, or an authority stage, is defined as one in which you have to apply or get through a certain gate in order to get on it. Somebody else has qualified you to be on that stage in some way. Now, there are other authority stages besides TEDx. For example, in San Diego, I was on an authority stage, which was Women Who Mean Business. I had to get nominated for that stage, and I had 19 letters of recommendation written for me to get on that stage. Now, the way to maximize that, since I can't sell from that stage and I can't be paid to be on that stage, how do I maximize it? The way you maximize that is social media. You've got to get it out there as much as possible. Talk about it. Put it on your website. Put it on your LinkedIn. Put it on your social media everywhere. Share it with friends and family and ask them to share it with others. Ask them to like it and comment on it and get it viewed, because the best way to maximize an authority stage is to let people know about it. In the one in San Diego, my company actually wrote a press release about me getting on that stage, and then we mailed it out to our entire list of clients so that they could see what we were doing in the world. It was a very powerful authority stage for us.
Beautiful. You know, one of my good friends, Bill Stainton, was on the TedX stage, and his TEDx talk about how to be a more creative person has been viewed by almost 100,000 people. And that is such a powerful bragging right for him that other influencers and decision makers and conference coordinators can go and watch his TED Talk and know that he can bring that message. He can improvise when the audience responds in a way that's unexpected. He can make the most of his moments on the stage and create that standing ovation experience. And it certainly helped him get many, many paid speaking gigs. And he is an NSA Hall of Fame speaker. And that's one of the primary ways that he makes his living. So authority stages are great. What is the fourth stage?
So the fourth type of stage might surprise you. The fourth stage is actually a rehearsal stage. Now, I have been on over 5,000 stages. And if you would like to guess, would you like to guess which talk was my best talk?
I would like to guess that, but I wouldn't be in a position to ask that because I don't know.
My best talk is my next talk. Why? Because we're always improving. We're always changing. We're always getting better. So you always need rehearsal stages. Rehearsal stages are defined by the fact that there is a feedback mechanism to them in some way. Now, pretty much every stage you get on can be a rehearsal stage. I wouldn't recommend you use your TEDx as a rehearsal stage. However, it is also a rehearsal stage because you can get better from that. If you are getting feedback, it can be in a variety of different forms. Let's say, for example, this is a rehearsal stage, then I'm getting feedback from you and you are clarifying some of my points, which will help me do better in my next talk. If there's comments in the comment section, since we're live streaming, I'll check out the comments and see if they have feedback for us as well. Maybe they're making comments on something in particular. Maybe they have a question, something I need to clarify more carefully the next time I give this talk. So any feedback mechanism in there is a rehearsal stage, but that means that your bathroom mirror and rehearsing in front of your dogs is not actually a rehearsal stage.
Well, and so how do we make the most of those rehearsal stages?
So use your rehearsal stages to get as much feedback as possible. And I like to think of feedback as really just somebody's opinion. So when you receive feedback, somebody could say, that was absolutely fantastic. Well, great, but that's not very detailed, right? If somebody says, gee, I don't like the way that your glasses reflected the lights, then that could be something that I could change in the future, right? And if I put the lights a little bit further out, I won't have as much of a reflection in my glasses, or maybe I can buy anti-reflective glasses. All of the feedback that comes, though, is just somebody's opinion. So if you are not really ready for criticism in that critiquing, icky way, just make sure that you're open to the possibility that it's just that one person's opinion. And then you can let it drop to the floor if it doesn't apply to you. If they're criticizing you in a way that you think, no, I really don't need that, don't argue with them and don't come back and defend why you do it the way you do. Just say, thank you, that was helpful. And then let the criticism that you don't need drop to the floor.
That's lovely. I have a story to share along this line that's very memorable in my own experience. I was working with a coach a number of years ago, and he said, Nancy, you must be a speaker. It is the single most influential way for you to touch and transform more lives. And I said to the coach at the time, I'm a writer, I'm not a speaker. And he said, yeah, but if you hold on to that belief, then one arm of your success will be tied behind your back because you won't be able to make the impact that you really want to make. So what I want you to do, Nancy, is I want you to be aware of and receptive to invitations to speak. And so there was an organization called the Women Business Owners of Seattle, and they knew that I was a publicity expert, and they invited me to come and give a talk about publicity. And since the coach said, you need to be speaking, I said yes. And I don't think it wasn't a paid gig. It wasn't an authority stage. It wasn't a brass ring. It wasn't to speak to sell, but it was not my finest hour. Let me put it to you that way. And I knew that right away, because when the evaluations came back, someone wrote anonymously, of course, I didn't pay $45 for the rubber chicken lunch and $10 for parking to watch a speaker hold on to the podium for dear life, lean on PowerPoint like a crutch, and pray for the presentation to be over.
Oh, look how long you've remembered that. Oh my goodness, that needs to be dropped to the floor. Oh my goodness.
But it was like I sucked. I mean, I honestly sucked in front of a whole room of people that thought I was, I said yes, I was courageous, but I wasn't ready. It would have been better for me to rehearse somewhere where I could get feedback in a friendly way, but instead I went for it and I got this feedback, and I thought to myself, you know what? I do need to become a better speaker, and I need to become more masterful as a public speaker. And I'm going to invest in my success so that I can become a more masterful speaker and a sought after speaker. And today I have accomplished those objectives, but it wasn't until you get hit squarely between the eyes with a criticism that brings you to your knees that you either get your wake up call or you don't. And so I think
I am sorry that happened to you. I wish I could wave a magic wand and make that go away. But our mess is our message sometimes. And that was the beginning of greatness for you. So I'm really glad you kept going and weren't crippled by that. You were able to move forward and really invest in yourself. It is good advice from the coach originally. I do see how you would want a rehearsal stage, but if you are saying, I am not a speaker, a belief is just a thought you keep thinking, right? So as soon as you change your mind, like, well, maybe I could be a speaker. How could I be a speaker? Then the possibilities open up. And a great example is yours, that you got invited right away to come speak on a stage.
Well, and what was the funniest part about it is several years later, the powers that be in this organization changed, and my own star on the rise changed quite a bit, and they invited me back. And I thought to myself, okay, I'm being invited back. So this time there was no PowerPoint. There was just the right amount of content. I looked the audience right in the eye. I had so much joy delivering the message. And my great comeuppance was when the feedback came back and said, of all the speakers we had this calendar year, this presentation was the absolute best. And I thought to myself, get on the path to mastery, practice your craft. Don't argue for your limitations, argue for your upside. And so to make the most of rehearsal stages, you make the most of the feedback that comes back to you, you apply it, and you get back out there.
I love that. Well, actually, we did talk about all 4 types of stages, but the secret of this particular talk is that there's actually a 5th secret stage. Would you like to know what that secret stage is?
I would.
The secret stage is your own stage. And Nancy, you have done that in spades. You have created your very own stage. The great thing about your own stage is that you can make that stage whichever kind of stage you want. You can make it a speak to sell stage, and you can make offers from your own stage. You can make it an authority stage where you're an authority because you have gotten through a certain gate. You can have guests or not. You can make it a paid speaking gig where you actually charge for people to watch your show. And you can make it a rehearsal stage where you're just practicing. My dear friend, Michelle Abraham, who co-hosts Podapalooza with me, Michelle made the statement that if you're not embarrassed by your first 10 podcast episodes, you waited too long to start. And I think that's totally true. You got to get yourself out there and then just keep going, right? Just keep swimming, swimming, swimming.
Yes, Dory. So since you brought up Podapalooza, I mean, obviously, I love podcast guesting, and I teach and train my clients to book themselves on shows without hiring an expensive booking agency. And when I learned about Podapalooza, I thought, oh my gosh, I want my whole community of over 3,000 people in this Facebook group to know about it. And you are the co-creator of it with Michelle Abraham. Isn't that right?
That's correct. And
So what the heck is Podapalooza, and why do we need to know about it now?
Awesome. Podapalooza is the hottest new event for podcast guesting and podcast hosting. Michelle and I created it. The first one was in December of last year. We did it again in March, and we're doing it again in June. So the big date for this release is for the live stream is June 17th. But you can always go to Podapalooza, podapalooza.com, and check out when the next date is. If you're interested in speaking on podcasts, or you are a podcast host, it is right for you. So we have a main stage full of amazing speakers like Steve Olsher, who's going to talk about, he's the founder of Podcast.io, and he's going to talk about the future of podcasting in Web3. Then we have Chuck Anderson, who's talking about podcasting for partners, how guests and hosts can create collaborations with partnerships with every episode. And he is spectacular at creating affiliates and partnerships, and he's amazing at that. Evans Putnam is going to come and talk about how to amplify your income and impact with podcasts by making money on it with your own podcast sales machine. How cool is that? Then we have Melanie Benson coming to talk about Rewired for Wealth. And we have Dan Morris come to talk about how to find and speak directly with your target audience when you don't have guests and can't rely on them to spread the word. There's all kinds of really great value in there on the main stage, but it gets better than that.
How does it get better?
We have 40 podcasters that are coming to share their podcasts with the audience and put it on stage, and they'll come up on stage and they will talk about their podcast and the types of guests they're looking for. And you will be able to be connected with them by getting their contact information and reaching out to them. And then you get to introduce yourself to the podcasters during the event. We'll bring you out, all of our attendees come to the mic, and we ask your name and your talk title and what kind of audience you're looking to get in front of. And the podcasters are all there listening, taking notes, and deciding which people they want to bring onto their podcast. We have something even more special for our VIPs. For our VIPs, we have a program where we actually have you get interviewed during the event. So during the event, you can get interviewed in private breakout rooms with podcasters on up to 5 different podcasts. If you don't want to do that many, you can say, no, thanks, I'll just have 1 or 2 or 3, but you can get, it's not guaranteed up to 5, but you can, we will, it's a possibility that you can get on to up to 5 podcasts, and we will guarantee you will at least get interviewed on 1. So you will be able to have like possibly an entire season worth of podcast recordings done in a single day. That's totally amazing. Plus we have a ton of bonuses, and you'll get the recording of the event, and you'll also get a copy of a ticket to the Michelle and Evans podcast sales machine and a whole bunch of other really cool bonuses. And so there's just a ton of value in that. And we hope that your folks would be interested. If you want to check it out, we will put the link in the chat.
Yes. And the link is getknowngetpaid.com/Kimberly June 2022. And there are 2 tiers of opportunity. You can get a ticket for $5, or you can do a VIP ticket for $197. Can you just re-explain the difference, why the VIP would be such a good choice?
So the VIP, you're going to get over $3,000 worth of bonuses. And so it's totally worth it just for that alone. They are courses, full courses on things that you need as a podcaster. One of them is Secrets to Sensational Podcast Guesting and Hosting. That alone is 3 hours of content. We have another one about how to get interviewed. We have another one about Profitable Podcast Toolkit. So you'll have everything that you need in order to be a profitable podcaster or podcast guest. And there's all kinds of other bonuses in there. It's really, really phenomenal. Plus, you'll get the recordings of the event. But the key to the VIPs is that you're going to get interviewed on up to 5 podcasts during the event in our special Podatorium, which has special breakout rooms for each of the podcasters. And when you go in, you'll be able to get your interview knocked out right then and there during the event.
Wow. Well, that sounds like quite the event. One of the things we talked about in the green room a little while ago in a prior conversation is, do you book yourself on shows or do you hire an agency to represent you? What's your point of view about that?
Well, agencies can be very helpful, but very expensive. So if you want a done for you paid service, absolutely. And if you've got money to burn, totally, right? And if you don't want to do any of the work or any of the follow-up, that's fine. But there are so many opportunities out there for you to start and cut your teeth on before you're ready to make a big investment like that. There are tons of opportunities to be able to get seen and heard by podcasters who are looking for people just like you to speak on their shows, just to share your story and your message. Because if you're not being seen, you're being overlooked. And if you're not being heard, your message isn't getting out there. And if you're not regularly getting it out on stages, then it's not going to have the impact you want it to have before you leave this planet.
So there's one other thing I want to ask you about. Sometimes when I'm a guest on a podcast, the host asks me a question that comes out of complete left field. And this has happened to clients of mine. Or have you been on a media interview and the reporter is particularly agitated and comes out with something that comes from completely nowhere, and then you're sitting there gobsmacked and doe in the headlight, like, how do I respond? The importance of being able to bend and sway when you deal with a challenging question or inquiry is a learned skill. How important is improvisation and bending and swaying and being able to do it well? How important is that when you're a speaker, a trainer, and someone who shares their knowledge out there?
Well, it's very key. And it can also lead to not just a great talk, but also it can increase your confidence. When you know that you can speak at a moment's notice on pretty much any topic, your confidence goes way up and you get a lot more relaxed, knowing that you can handle just about anything that comes at you. So I was fortunate in school to be able to compete in a contest, in an impromptu contest. We were given 7 minutes to develop a 5-minute talk. And we were given the subject and then the timer started, right? So you have 2 minutes basically to create this 5-minute talk. My topic that I competed in the competition and I did very well. And the very final part of the competition was the topic that I was given to speak on was lima beans. And I actually won the competition by giving a 5-minute talk on lima beans. And if you can do that, it is the good news is it's absolutely a learned skill. It's not that you are naturally born with it. It is something that you can develop over time. And you just need a little bit of guidance and coaching on how to do it. And you can learn from some of the masters who've completed it before. So there is an opportunity to be able to learn this skill.
Well, and I think it's such an important skill. And one of the things I want to say now is part of the reason I'm interviewing you today is because you have been so generous to offer some very valuable bonuses when I start my Broadcast Your Brilliance Bootcamp that's going to be starting up again on June 22nd. And I want everyone who's watching today to know that when you decide to say yes to your 12-week place in the Broadcast Your Brilliance Bootcamp, not only will you get all the magic that's waiting for you from myself, but you get to go to Podapalooza with your complimentary ticket to participate in this June 17th event all day, where you can meet all the podcasters and book yourself on shows. And it's up to you if you want to upgrade to VIP, which I highly recommend. And the other thing that Kimberly so graciously offered is a 3-hour masterclass on improvisation. Tell us about what's going to happen during that 3-hour masterclass for the students who enroll in the Broadcast Your Brilliance Bootcamp.
Well, improvisation really works very well when you have a formula. You have a formula to follow, a blueprint, if you will, of what you need to say, when you need to say it, and how you need to structure a talk. So we're going to get into exactly what kinds of formulas work well. We have multiple formulas for you to use, and you can choose which one works best for you. And you'll get a chance to practice speaking on the spot. And I love teaching this class because it's an opportunity for everybody in the audience to have no idea what they're going to be speaking about, and that they feel very intimidated at first, and then they relax because they have this formula that they can follow. And with the formula, they're able to speak for 1 minute, maybe 3 minutes on a particular topic with really no preparation at all. And it boosts your confidence unbelievably. And it's a great skill to have for when you get called on the carpet by a podcast host. As a matter of fact, I was on a podcast the other day and they warned me up front. We ask all kinds of weird questions sort of out of the box. Now, this talk was on the 4 types of stages every entrepreneur and speaker should get on. That was the talk that we were giving, pretty much the same talk. So during the talk, they would ask questions like the one that came up was, what do you think about disciplining children? What's your take on child discipline? And which of course had nothing at all to do with that. And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I don't think there should be child discipline because I think they have it more right than we do. I think if there was any discipline, it should be the children disciplining us because they're a lot closer to what they want in the world and they don't have all the head trash that we have that we've grown up with. So I would rather them figure out what to do rather than us tell them what to do. And they loved that answer. It was really great, but I had no idea we were going to talk child discipline. It's just a matter of having a formula of a way to be able to formulate a thought and give yourself time to do that and then be able to communicate it effectively.
I am so excited about this 3-hour class. I think improvisation is so valuable, and along the path to mastery, we all have to do it. And I want to share one quick little story. Sometimes, I mean, I've done over 100 podcast guest spots since the pandemic hit, and I've gotten really good at the bend and sway dance. And usually it's a dialogue between me and a host, and it feels really good. And I know how to have a juicy conversation with someone. So one time I got invited to be on someone's podcast, and he said to me, Nancy, we're going to hand over the talking stick and you're going to take over the show for 15 minutes. Share whatever it is that you want to, starting right now. And I was quite taken aback because, like any good podcast guest, I watched the show a couple episodes before I showed up on their show to know what the vibe was. But it totally took me by surprise. And so I managed to tell an amazing story, get the audience engaged, show up fully as myself. There were 27 people live on that call, hanging on my every word. And when the call was over, 3 of them decided to enroll in the Broadcast Your Brilliance Bootcamp straight away. And I did not even make an offer. It was me bringing it on the spot, off the cuff, in service to who was there, and knowing that the right outcome was going to result.
Absolutely. I speak to sales stage, done with fantastic results. That is a great example of being able to grab the mic when somebody hands it to you. So my motto is, if it's not fun, it's not worth doing. But a great quote that I like to use is, when somebody hands you the mic, you say yes. So if there's ever an opportunity to grab the mic, whether it's just asking a question in a seminar or being able to raise your hand and talk during a particular part, or being able to be handed a mic like Nancy was and just run with it, if somebody hands you a mic, you say yes. So extra 10,000 bonus points for you for grabbing the mic. And on top of that, making 3 sales. What a great story. I love that.
Well, it's all the power of being on the path to mastery. Remember, I said they didn't want to hear someone hold on to the podium for dear life, pray to PowerPoint like a crutch, and pray for the presentation be over. Well, nobody's doing that anymore. I'm having fun sharing my message, and I'm teaching my clients to have fun sharing their message. And now you get to share your brilliant skills with improvisation with the clients who join me in the Broadcast Your Brilliance Bootcamp. And we also get to participate in Podapalooza. So I can't say thank you enough for being so generous and bringing so much value today to today's Learn More, Earn More show. For those of you who are watching now and know that you want to grab your $5 ticket to Podapalooza, go to getknowngetpaid.com/Kimberly June 2022 right now and invite 5 of your friends. Make it a huge party. Tell everyone you know, because Kimberly, you are on fire.
Well, friends don't let friends miss Podapalooza. So I would love for you guys to bring friends with you. Everybody needs to tell their story and get on stages. And the opportunity to meet 40 podcasters in a single day, how powerful is that?
So if you had it to do over again with your fur-lined rut in the corporate job that you overstayed your welcome in for way too long, if you had it to do over again, what would you have done differently so you could get to this place of service and contribution faster?
I would have trusted that what I had to offer the world was more than enough. I was trying to fit in to other people's ideas of what I needed to do instead of just stepping into what I was really, really good at. And in my very early age nature, right? I was really good at being on stage, at entertaining people, at having fun. I had a really big voice. And to go into corporate and have that shut down 50 to 80% of the time, that wasn't fun, right? But I was doing it because I thought I was following a path that somebody else had laid out for me that was a path to success. And what I should have done is just trusted what I had and known that it was good enough and would serve me very well in doing what I loved and getting paid very well for it.
Well, that's brilliant advice. Well, Kimberly Crowe, what a pleasure to have you as a guest on the Learn More, Earn More show. Thank you for being so generous with your content, so on fire with your energy, and so present to serve the people who are watching. I know people got a lot of value. If you're tuning in live now, please send some love to Kimberly. Share this out to others who can benefit. And I look forward to seeing you at Podapalooza. And of course, remember, next week, June 6th through the 14th at 11 o'clock a.m. Pacific is the Podcast Visibility Live Lab. And I'm going to guide you to prepare, position, prioritize, pitch, ping pong, and profit from podcast guesting specifically. But if we open up our mind to what it is that Kimberly shared today, there are so many other stages that we can optimize and maximize so that we can touch more lives, change the world, and smile all the way to the bank and be happy in our lives. So I hope you are inspired. Any final thoughts? One more final thought before we close?
If you haven't already signed up for the lab, definitely sign up for it. It's going to be fabulous. I will be there and I will see you there.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It's been a great show and I can't wait to have you join me for the next one. By the way, if you are not yet a subscriber to the Learn More, Earn More show, won't you please hit that red subscribe button? I checked this morning and I have like 528 subscribers and I'd love to be 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours. Won't you help me? It's great to be able to make those little asks. We can make a lot of little asks. All of a sudden you make really big things happen. So there you go. So this is Nancy Juetten and Kimberly Crowe signing off for now. We will see you the next time. And we'll all see you all at Podapalooza for sure. Thank you so much. Let's see. Thank you so much. That was great.
My pleasure. I think we're still live on Facebook.
Oh, right. And we are, and I don't remember how to stop that. So I will be we'll see you next time.
My pleasure. Cheers.
Bye.